Hello, everyone. Today's topic is the difference between people whose happiness lasts a long time and people whose happiness disappears quickly. Everyone wants to find happiness in life, but some people seem to manage to stay happy for far longer than others, while others find that their joy fades away or they end up being betrayed by the very thing that made them happy, or they just grow tired of their seeming good fortune. Some people just seem to go on doing fine, no matter how many years go by. What causes the difference? Let us explore the insight that Buddhism can give on this matter. We will cover these 2 points. 1. Positional goods and non-positional goods. 2. 3 kinds of rich people. Positional goods is a term coined by Austrian-British economist Fred Hirsch and expanded upon by American economist Robert Frank. These are things whose value depends on how they compare with goods owned by others, such as social status, income, houses, cars, or watches. Non-positional goods are, then, things that don't depend so much on these comparisons, like health, freedom, modes of thought, or trust. The happiness gained from positional goods only lasts a short time, whereas the happiness gained from non-positional goods is longer lasting. In Japan, the Nippon Individual Savings Account, NISA, was widely promoted by the government in 2024. It's an index fund, meaning it's tied with the performance of a professionally managed group of stocks, and it is designed to allow people to save up for the future by adding money little by little. Until the summertime, people who had opened a NISA were enjoying steady gains, but then stock prices suddenly crashed, and this led to panic for many. "Now, I've lost all my savings and gone into the red," people cried. "If only I'd never bothered investing." Many people were outraged, feeling they'd been deceived by the government, and called up their stockbrokers to demand they do something about it. This, it seems, was a dual disaster, with people suffering not only due to the plummeting stocks and lost money, but also due to their own anger over the situation. You see, when we believe that others' causes produce our own effects, we point the blame at others when things go wrong for us. All the resulting anger makes us suffer. Buddhism teaches, however, that own causes produce own effects in all cases, without exception. In other words, everything that happens to us is the product of our own deeds. In the case of the NISAs, sure, the government might have promoted them, but the people who chose to follow that advice and invest did so of their own accord. The cause of their present troubles is within them. Now, you might think that sounds like blaming the victim, but actually, being aware that it is our own causes that produce our own effects has a real benefit. While it won't change the fact that being affected by a stock crash comes as a shock, once something like that happens, our immediate reaction will be, "Okay, what action should I take now?" Instead of boiling in anger and suffering because of it, we carefully consider the steps we should take to improve our situation. Understanding that we are the ones who bring about the things that happen to us allows us to take a much calmer, more positive approach when things go wrong. One major difference between those who seek to gain happiness from positional goods and those who seek to gain happiness from non-positional goods is that the former are basing their happiness on things outside of themselves, like money, while the latter tend to have a greater awareness that it is their own causes that produce their own effects. Having a good foundation of knowledge about a situation helps greatly when it comes to responding to it calmly and effectively, too. With the NISAs, those who already had some background knowledge about how stocks work were likely aware that sometimes stock prices do just plummet, but that they will go back up again just as quickly. An account like a NISA is something you keep going for a decade or two, and in that span of time, you are sure to see a crash or two, so just make sure to factor that in. This understanding of the situation allows for a much better sense of mental stability even as stock prices fluctuate, instead of the extreme highs and extreme lows that result from going in blind. You might notice also that the calmer approach centers around a long-term plan, as opposed to a short-term plan to get money quickly. A well thought out long term plan is the more likely of the two to produce long lasting happiness. Think of it this way: do you want the golden egg, or do you want the chicken that lays the golden egg? The egg is certainly nice to have, but once you use it, it's gone. The chicken, meanwhile, will keep laying golden eggs, so you'll keep getting to profit off of them in the long run. In the same way, if you have a long-term money-making plan, that will serve you much better than just, say, winning the lottery and immediately getting a large sum of money that you'll quickly blitz through. The golden egg, then, is a positional good, whereas the chicken is a non-positional good. People commonly think that having a high social status is something that will bring happiness, but actually, the happiness it does bring is short-lived. Of course, we feel happy when we get promoted to a higher position in our company, but there's every chance we'll end up being demoted back down again if things go wrong. There is also the fact that if, say, we are promoted to vice president, we'll feel happy about it, but if we are demoted to vice president, that will make us miserable. In other words, then, no position is inherently good or bad. It's all relative. Furthermore, the seeming good fortune of us being promoted can lead to us feeling overburdened as we try to grapple with all the added responsibilities that come with our new position. Some would likely say that instead of going through all the stress of a competitive work environment in the pursuit of money and status, it's better and more fulfilling in the long run to focus on volunteer work with people you get along with, or even just on hobbies. We might assume money and status are more valuable because they are more tangible, but actually, it is the intangible things that will bring longer lasting happiness. Let us now hear what the Buddha taught regarding this difference between tangible and intangible things. Sakyamuni Buddha taught that there are three kinds of rich people: people who are rich in house, people who are rich in body, and people who are rich in mind. Here, rich means blessed. Those who are rich in body are better off than those who are rich in house, while those who are rich in mind are better off than those who are rich in body. To be rich in house is to have plenty of positional goods, such as social status, money, and possessions. An even greater blessing than being a billionaire, however, is being rich in body, which is to be fit and healthy and able to eat well, too. Even more fortunate than that is being rich in mind, which is to have lasting joy and peace of mind. Sakyamuni Buddha himself began his life rich in house, being born as Prince Siddhartha Gautama of the Sakya clan in Kapila Castle. As the son of a king, he had practically everything anyone could wish for: money, status, talent, good looks, and even the most beautiful woman in India as his wife, soon followed by the sons she would bear him. However, at the age of 29, he would suddenly abandon it all, sneaking out of the castle in the middle of the night and heading into the mountains to live as an ascetic. When his absence was discovered, a great commotion arose in the castle, and his father, King Suddhodana, appealed to his vassals to bring the prince back. Immediately, a vassal named Kandinya raised his hand and pledged to do everything in his power to find him. His eagerness was likely at least partly fueled by the thought of the rewards he would receive for successfully managing to do so. Indeed, the desperate king promised him he would give him anything he asked for if he could only return his son to him. Kandinya therefore set off with 4 other vassals in search of Prince Siddhartha. The search party would eventually find the prince engaged in ascetic practice in a forest. Then Kandinya asked the prince something that had been nagging at him the whole time. "Your Highness, I have heard that there are 4 reasons why people become ascetics, that a long-term illness has left them unable to find joy in life. that they have lost hope in their elder years due to loss of mobility, that they have lost their wealth and struggle to maintain their lifestyle, or that their family has died and they have seen the vanity of the world. But none of these apply to you. You've always been blessed with money, possessions, social status, everything I dream of having. And you are young and healthy. You excel in both academics and sports, and you have your whole family right there. If I am to have even a fraction of what you have, if I am to merely provide my family with a comfortable life, I have to toil day in, day out. Why, Your Highness, would you abandon these pleasures that have been readily available to you from the start, reduce your possessions to merely a robe and a bowl, and seek such a lofty thing as enlightenment? For Condinya, who was striving with all his might to be rich in house, the prince's actions were simply unthinkable. To go from a comfortable life of dining on fine foods and having servants at his beck and call for every little thing he could possibly want or need to a life out in the wilderness where he would be at the mercy of dangerous beasts, sickness, and injury, with no guaranteed access to food or shelter, and no one around to help him in a worst-case scenario. How could the prince even consider doing such a thing? Hearing Kandinya's question, Prince Siddhartha replied, "Why can't you understand? This is a world of impermanence. Impermanence is the fact that nothing lasts in this world. Even if we become rich in house or body, the happiness it brings us does not last." It was this realization that made Prince Siddhartha able to give up being rich in house and body in favor of trying to become rich in mind. The prince continued, "Everything will perish due to old age, sickness, and death. Even someone who is young, rich, and healthy now is growing older with each passing day, might fall ill at any point, and is sure to die someday too. Not only that, but you cannot take any of your wealth or possessions with you when you die either. Everyone, including my family in the castle, is sure to lose everything that makes them happy due to old age, sickness, and death. Do none of you see that?" Kandinya was at once moved and a little confused by the prince's words, but it was quite apparent to him that Siddhartha had firmly made up his mind, and there would be no persuading him to return to the castle. The search party therefore dejectedly resigned themselves to going back without him. The news brought anguish to King Suddhodana, but accepting that his son would not have a change of heart any time soon, he requested that the 5 vassals instead live alongside the prince and look after him. After all, Siddhartha was accustomed to life in the castle and would surely need help and assistance in the drastically different environment he was now in. Moved by King Suddhodana's fatherly love for his son, spurred on by his own debt of gratitude to the king, and with the prince's words on impermanence still ringing in his ears, Kalandinia agreed to the task, as did the other 4, and the group returned to Prince Siddhartha. He told them he did not need looking after, as he was devoted to his practices, but the 5 vassals proposed instead that he let them practice alongside him. He agreed to this, and so they became the first 5 bhikkhu, or Buddhist monks. Nearly 6 years went by, over the course of which Siddhartha was reduced to skin and bones from extremely strict adherence to his practices. Despite all his toils, however, he still had not managed to attain enlightenment, and he began to wonder if he was even on the right path. Siddhartha therefore decided to change his focus from mortification of the flesh to mental cultivation, and went to purify his body in the Niranjana river. This took the 5 bhikkhu by surprise, and they wondered if he had given up on his practices. Once he was finished, Siddhartha attempted to make his way back up the riverbank, but he was so weakened from hunger that he found himself physically unable to do so. A milk seller named Sujata happened to spot him as she walked nearby, and he gently asked her if she would give him some of the milk gruel she had. Somehow sensing the virtue of this man, close as he was to enlightenment, she happily obliged. The 5 bhikkhu, however, were scandalized to see Siddhartha defiling himself by interacting with a woman, which was forbidden for an ascetic, and so they abandoned him in disgust. Regaining his strength thanks to the milk gruel, Siddhartha crawled back up the riverbank and sat beneath what is now called the Bodhi tree, pledging to stay right there until he at last attained Buddhahood. Bodhis in Bodhi tree refers to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhis, or supreme perfect enlightenment, the enlightenment of a Buddha. This tree was named such because it was where Siddhartha would finally attain enlightenment and become Sakyamuni Buddha. It happened at last on the 8th of December when he was 35 years old. Having now found true happiness that transcends old age, sickness, and death, Sakyamuni Buddha was eager to convey the existence of this happiness to all, although he began to realize that would be easier said than done. How could he get across such an extraordinary state of being? Would his attempts to do so only lead people to slander the true Dharma? To slander the Dharma, the universal truth, is a dreadful deed because the Dharma is the only way by which all beings may be liberated from suffering, so Buddha was keen to avoid leading people to do such a thing. However, he also realized that if he made no attempt to convey it whatsoever, no one but him would ever have the chance to know happiness that transcends old age, sickness, and death. This would be a monumental task, but he resolved to give his all to carry it out. He therefore set out and began his mission to tell all people of the supreme joy that lay in wait for them. First he would tell the 5 bhikkhu, who were now in a town called Sarnath in Uttar Pradesh's Varanasi district. When they caught a glimpse of him approaching from afar, they initially wrinkled their noses in disgust and decided to simply ignore him, but as he drew closer, they realized that he seemed to fairly radiate virtue, and the 5 were soon overcome by awe at what was quite clearly a fully enlightened being coming their way. "O world-honored one!" they cried, and they rushed over to the Buddha and bowed down before his feet. The former Prince Siddhartha, now utterly transformed, said to them, "Listen well. I have attained happiness that transcends old age, sickness, and death. I will now teach you how to attain it." Buddha then gave his first sermon. This is called the Dharmakakra Pravartana, which means the setting in motion of the wheel of Dharma. Kaundinya was amazed by what the Buddha taught and immediately became his disciple. Where once his primary concern was how to obtain more money, possessions, and success, believing those to be what constituted happiness, now he finally understood why the prince had done away with all those things. Because there was a kind of happiness far, far beyond what any of those things could possibly bring. Happiness that never ends, never fades, and never wavers, even in the face of old age, sickness, and death. To attain this transcendent, everlasting happiness is to become rich in mind. Being rich in house and body certainly brings happiness, but that happiness does not last. If you follow the path laid down by Sakyamuni Buddha, you too can become rich in mind and enjoy true, unchanging happiness and peace within. Buddha dedicated his life to teaching about the existence of this happiness and how you can attain it, so if you listen intently to the Buddhist teachings at every given opportunity, you are sure to move towards that point of finally being permanently liberated from suffering. Thank you for watching.